Hey, it is Xennial Gamer, and today we're going to be doing Leos, the Guardian of the Labyrinth. This is the last in the Labyrinth videos that I'll be doing. So we're going to be looking at my Hell team, but I want to start off by warning you that I do think that a version of this team will work for many of you on hard mode, and if you can match the rune quality, then it should work on Hell mode. Now I'm going to run you through the runes of the monsters that I'm using, and then after I'm done, we'll also talk about a couple of alternatives for some of the monsters in this team, but I'll start off by saying that I don't really think there is an alternative for Katarina. Now, she's a free-to-play monster. Hopefully you have her built, but you're probably going to want to have her skilled up as well for the added damage. So if you don't have Katarina skilled up, at least of the teams that I can think of, there's probably not going to be an option for you to do Hell mode on Leos. Okay, so we've got Katarina on screen since I mentioned her. She's in Rage Will, and you can see the stats. I mean, it's not like the craziest, most powerful set ever, but it's a pretty decent output, plus 1600 damage, 232 crit. The crit rate is kind of low, particularly for this team, which introduces a little bit of RNG. It would be much better if it was at 85%, so I would have a guaranteed triple hit with the attribute advantage. Now, the Galleon we're using in here is actually my PvP Galleon, which is built in speed, speed, crit rate, and defense. So he does have really good crit rate. He doesn't do a lot of damage. I have a different Galleon that's for most PvE content that hits much harder. However, for speed tuning purposes, because I need the attack buff and the defense break to come out ahead of the Stella on this team, we're using the faster of my two Galleons who does less damage. So next up, we've got Stella. She's in a 2-2 set. It's a very high efficiency 2-2 set, but it's not rage or fatal. So obviously she could hit a little bit harder if she was in a more dedicated build. The 80 crit rate, again, slightly below the 85 that you'd need for a guaranteed crit. The Wusa is going to be actually acting first on this team. She's in Violent at 266, and then the Fran is also in Violent at 254. Now, the way this team works, actually, we'll go ahead and jump into the fight, and I'll run through the fight and then show you how this team works. Now, one of the parts that's difficult with this team is passing the second wave, because we have to manage our cooldowns and make sure that everything is set up exactly right for us when we get into the boss stage. And yet, at the exact same time, we have to survive, and the Stella is really squishy, and there's nothing really to draw any of the monsters away from hitting her randomly. So for this first stage, I hold the Wusa immunity, and I use the Fran attack buff instead. We're going to use the Katarina to go ahead and clear out 2 more monsters. We did use, obviously, the time to loot from Galleon, and then we're just going to use our S1s to finish off the last of these monsters. I could have used Galleon's S2 there as well. It didn't really matter. So the second stage, like I said, this is where it's going to get tricky. We're going to start off with the Wusa immunity, which is strippable, but we'll have Fran to heal if any of our monsters get stunned. And we're going to be using largely S1s. I'm not going to take an attack buff from either Fran or Galleon. And the reason for that is because I need to kill these monsters slowly. At the same time, I need to make sure that they don't kill me. So I used the S3 from Stella there to make sure that I killed the 2 monsters on the sides are always the most dangerous because of their AoEs. So I used the Stella S3 to kill the one on the side, because when you kill with Stella's S3, it resets and there's no lost time on the cooldown. We're going to go ahead and take the heal while we work on killing this monster over here. We're going to drop his attack bar a little bit. The proc was nice, but not necessary. And then we can just kill with S1. It's the exact same thing. Now we're going to go ahead and, again, we're just going to keep going through here on the S1s, make sure we stay healed. If we were to get a sleep from Wusa, it certainly makes life easier. We'll go ahead and reduce attack bar over here. We can't quite kill with the S3 yet, so we're going to hold on to it. Keep trying for some random sleeps. Haven't got one yet. It's funny, whenever I fight a Wusa in PvP, the sleep rate's 100%, but my Wusa never sleeps. Get another attack down there. And I should be able to kill right here now. Oh, I didn't make it, but that's okay, because it's the S2 from Stella that's actually going to matter on the final stage. So this will kill this one. All of our cooldowns now are exactly where they need to be. With only 1 monster left, we're fine. So we survived the wave this time, which was nice. And now we move on into the boss stage, and this is where it gets really tricky. So to start off with, the different pillars of the boss. Right now, we've got the Despair one, which grants 100% freeze, but you can block that with immunity. And then we've got the will one, which obviously means you cannot defense break the boss, which is okay to a certain extent because we're going to be using Katarina for ignore defense damage. So there is a focus one. I think it's the focus one that allows the boss to freeze you through will. And you need to watch for that one and make sure you kill it if that one comes up, because that's when your run falls apart. Okay, so we put the Wusa immunity up, which means that with Fran, we don't need to do anything. So we'll just put an attack break on the boss. We'll go ahead and get our defense breaks over here. Now, with Stella, we're going to brand the boss right here. With our Katarina, we're going to use the skill 2 to clear the side pillar and give ourselves invincibility. And then with Wusa, we're just going to hit. Obviously, we didn't kill anything. It didn't matter. So now we're set up to, we've got our attack buff still from the Galleon. So we're just going to hit the boss right here. We're going to hit the boss again. And now the temptation here would be to use the skill 2 with Galleon, but remember, if the boss drops below 75% HP, he's going to bring the side pillars back up, and then we can't unload with Katarina. So we're just going to go skill 1 right there, and we're going to skill 1 with our Stella as well. We're going to skill 1 with our Wusa, and we didn't push the boss under 75%. Now, had I used like the skill 3 with Stella, this run would have fallen apart because I would have pushed the boss under 75 before I got to Katarina. So now, as long as we get triple crits, which we did, we got the boss down much lower. And now we see this, this rage will defeat all frozen enemies, and the will is just will. And that's actually okay for us because we're going to, oh, we can't put immunity up. I just saw my Fran got stunned. So that means we're going to have to kill this rage sidebar over here. So we use that Stella skill 3 that we held on to. And that was important, and the Fran procced out anyway. So after all, I didn't need to kill the pillar, but I certainly couldn't count on the proc. And now we're going to go ahead and just push the boss under 25%. This will bring the last round of pillars up. And we can see that we've got the Despair, which we're covered through our immunity. We've got the Will, which is no big deal. So we can go straight at the boss right now. Refresh our immunity right here. We can brand the boss. And we'll go ahead and just do a bigger hit with Galleon. We'll do a bigger hit right here. And we're still covered because we've got immunity and the boss never had a focus side pillar. If you hit the boss too hard and push him below 75% before your Katarina goes, you'll wind up failing. It's very important to manage the boss's health. The other thing is, it's very important to make sure you get rid of that focus rune if it comes up, because the boss can freeze you through immunity. And then the third challenge is making sure that you manage that second wave carefully and that your monsters don't die. And there's a lot of RNG there, because if they all focus Stella and your Stella is squishy like mine, then she's probably going to die and you're going to have a fail. One other reason that could cause it to fail is if the boss starts out with a focus rune and your Galleon does not defense break that focus rune, because then you're not able to target it with your Katarina. And you saw I could only kill one side pillar at the start of the fight. So if the focus rune can't be killed by Katarina, then you either have to give up your invincibility or you have to let the boss have the focus rune, and either way you would fail. Okay, so let's talk about some of the alternatives. Oh, come on. Good Despair? Not really. I mean, could be worse, but you don't put accuracy. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so let's talk about some of the alternatives. So we've got the team that I used on screen right here. Now, Galleon could be replaced by any AoE defense breaker. He's nice because he gives me the attack buff, and it allows me to hold Fran's immunity. But if I were using, for example, Orion instead of Galleon, or Annabelle, or Lure, again, just an AoE defense breaker, then I would just run my Fran immunity first and hold the Wusa immunity, and then use Wusa when Fran's immunity wore off. So it works either way. It's just nice that you get the extra attack buff combined with the defense break from Galleon. Now, I did try to look up what the boss's resistance was, and I couldn't find it, so I can't tell you what the minimum accuracy is, but that's one reason that if you use a Galleon or an Orion, they should already be built with max or near max accuracy, especially your Galleon should be max accuracy. And I would make sure that my defense breaker has as much accuracy as possible, because that's the single biggest RNG element towards a fail. Now, as far as replacements for Stella, her primary purpose here is to brand, but her skill 3 is really nice as well for the waves. It's not essential though. You could replace her with, for example, Naomi. You could also replace her with, for example, the Wind Barbarian King. Now, if you replace her with Naomi, the brand is going to have a lower success rate because I believe it's only a 50% chance in the passive, 50% on 2 hits, but that still makes it like 75%. And so if you don't land the brand, that doesn't guarantee a fail, but it does slow the rundown. You'll have to work the boss down further, and it's just that many more opportunities for that focus pillar to pop up. The Wind Barbarian King has a different problem. When his skill 3 is on cooldown, he speeds up, which can screw up the speed tuning of your team. You also have to be careful that he's going to do a little bit more damage with his brand than Stella does, and it puts the boss just that much closer to dropping under 75%. That's kind of the benefit of Stella here because she doesn't have that attribute advantage and the speed tuning stays consistent, but you can definitely make it work with Velgo or whomever. The next one up we've got is just Wusa and Fran. So everybody should have Fran. We shouldn't be talking about Fran replacements. As far as Wusa, if you don't have him, then pretty much any other immunity buffer. Chloe would work here. Delphoy would work here. So just as long as it's not, I can't even think of a fire immunity buffer offhand. I'm sure there must be one, but I can't think of one. But just as long as you're not bringing in a fire monster, you'll be fine. So the basic idea of this team is 2 immunity buffers. You're building around Katarina to do your primary damage. You need attack buff, you need defense break, and then you use the brander to boost that damage of the Katarina even further. Okay, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you find this helpful. I hope you're able to build a Leos Hell team, or if not, a Leos Hard team. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, please pop that subscribe button over on the left. It shows me that you enjoyed the video, but more importantly, it shows me that you found the information useful and hopefully it helped you in your gameplay. So here's the deal. You pop subscribe and I'll keep popping out content. Thanks guys.